Corded Books presents an unabridged recording of Helltown from the Last Gunfighter series by William W. Johnstone with J.A. Johnstone. Narrated by George Guidell and directed by Drew Sussman. This book is copyrighted 2007 by William W. Johnstone. This recording is copyrighted 2008 by Recorded Books. Buckskin, Nevada was once a boom town, then died a peaceful death. But when a fresh vein of silver is struck, Frank Morgan lets himself get pinned with a tin badge at the worst possible time. And now, Helltown.
Chapter 1. The kid was obstreperous. That was the way Johnny Collier thought of him, anyway, since Johnny had once been snowed in for the winter with nothing but a dictionary to read, and he had gone through that sucker from cover to cover and memorized a lot of it. But it would have been just as easy to say that the kid was an asshole, because that was true, too. Johnny moved the bar rag in circles over the mahogany, even though the wood already shone in the light from the oil chandeliers in the Silver Baron saloon, and listened to the kid's braying laughter. He'd been drunk already when he came into the Silver Baron half an hour earlier, and he hadn't done anything since then except get drunker and more obnoxious. His friends, a couple of hard-faced hombres in range clothes, had tried to persuade him to control himself, but the kid wasn't having any of it. Now he stood over the table where Professor Burton had been nursing a drink and demanded in a loud, arrogant voice, "What the hell are you dressed up for, mister? Going to a wedding or a funeral?" The professor, who was always dapper in a suit, vest, and bowler hat, replied in his fluid, cultured voice, "This is my normal attire, sir." The kid laughed again. "Then you must be one of them strange fellows who don't like women. That what you are, mister?" Burton's middle-aged face, usually tranquil, flushed with anger. "Even if that were the case, which it's not, by the way, it would be none of your business. Now, if you wouldn't mind taking your questions elsewhere." The kid drew himself up as straight as he could. Not an easy task, considering how drunk he was. "Are you telling me to get the hell away from you?" In a more polite fashion. "Yes," Burton snapped. Most of the time he was the mildest of souls, but even he could be riled, and he was well on his way to that point now. Behind the bar, Johnny Collier hoped that the professor wouldn't say anything else to annoy the kid. The youngster wore two guns, both in low-slung holsters, and clearly thought of himself as a bad man. He might not be all that much of a shootist, really, but he was more dangerous than the professor, that was for sure. Johnny didn't want to see Burton get hurt, and he didn't want any gunfights in here. He hated scrubbing bloodstains off the floor, something he'd had to do several times in the past month, since the word had gotten out that the Lucky Lizard mine had reopened. People started flooding into the former ghost town of Buckskin once they heard about the silver strike, eager as always to try to grab some of those riches for themselves. And, as always, more people meant more trouble. The bat wings swung open, and Thomas Woodford stepped into the saloon. A thick-bodied man in overalls, flannel shirt, and battered old hat, Tip, as he was known to his friends, looked like a down-on-his-luck prospector. Nobody would guess from his appearance that he owned not only the Lucky Lizard, but also the Silver Baron saloon. Tip had started the saloon with some of the money from his first strike, later sold it, then took it over again when the man he sold it to left town. Nearly everybody had deserted Buckskin at that point, because the silver veins had petered out, and the boom was over. Not long ago, though, Tip had found the vein again, and Buckskin had once again become a boom town with all the progress and problems that came with such a development, including this drunk, hot-headed kid gunslinger who pounded a fist down on Professor Burton's table and yelled, "Who the hell do you think I am talking to me like that?" "An imbecile who doesn't understand when a man wants to be left alone?" Burton responded in a cool voice that just infuriated the kid even more. Tip Woodford backed out through the door and vanished into the night. Johnny muttered a curse. Looked like his boss was leaving him here to handle this mess alone. Or maybe Tip was going for help. Johnny clung to that hope as he started to reach under the bar to the shelf where he kept a sawed-off greener. He couldn't actually fire the scattergun in here. Too many innocent people might be hurt if he did, but the threat of it might settle the kid down. Before Johnny could touch the shotgun's smooth stock, one of the kid's pards shook his head and said, "Leave it be, drink juggler." Johnny swallowed hard. The kid's companions were older and more experienced. They had the lean, cold look of true gunmen about them, and Johnny knew he would be committing suicide to cross them. He had already narrowly avoided one death sentence in his life. He took his hand away from the greener.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.